Hi Year 10, this is week 7 and therefore the final week of this half term and the final week of this academic year. So over the last 7 weeks you've had the opportunity to revisit the plot of Romeo and Juliet. You've learned who the main characters are in the play. You've learned about the social and historical context which would have influenced the writing of Romeo and Juliet. So basically you've understood what life was like at the time. You've began exploring the key scenes in Romeo and Juliet and what the language might be suggesting. You've also had a go at analysing some key quotations from the play, so zooming in on specific moments and identifying those methods used. And that has led you into developing your skill for exploding quotations, which you can use for Romeo and Juliet and other texts. You've explored longer extracts from Romeo and Juliet in preparation for answering an exam question, and that was the focus last week. And you've practiced writing what, how, why style paragraphs using models and support throughout the last 7 weeks. This week, it's really important that we give you the opportunity to plan a response to a Romeo and Juliet exam question and actually write a full response to this exam question. Okay, so let's dive right into it. This is the exam question that you're going to be answering. It says, read this extract from Act 2, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet, and then answer the question that follows. At this point in the play, Mercutio and Benvolio are discussing Romeo and his relationship with Rosaline. Starting with the extract, explore how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love. Write about how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in this extract, and how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the play as a whole. Now, before we sort of delve into the question or the extract, you'll notice that this particular question, this section of the exam, is worth 34 marks. Okay, you get 30 marks for the response itself and 4 marks for AO4, which is your spelling, punctuation and grammar. So I think it's really important that before we kind of delve into answering the question, you understand what those 30 marks mean, what you're aiming for to grasp as many marks as you can. So 30 marks and then the extra 4 is the half of the total marks of the paper. Okay, so there's another question on A Christmas Carol which is also worth 30 marks. So this question, because it's worth so many marks, requires a full essay response. That means you need to write an extended, detailed piece of writing. Okay, it's nothing to be frightened of, it's that what, how, why structure, just more of it. So what is it they want for 34 marks? Let's have a look. So when the examiner is reading through your response, they are looking at the following assessment objectives. Okay, this is what they want you to demonstrate. Okay, so assessment objective 1, to be able to read, understand and form sensible opinions about a literature text, to use formal English to write my answers to essay questions, to be able to support my ideas by referring to what happens in the text using quotations where I can. Assessment objective 2, to be able to explain how a writer's choice of words and phrases affects how we respond to texts, to be able to explain how writers sequence their ideas in a text and how the sequence affects the reader. Assessment objective 3 is to be able to make relevant connections between texts and their contexts. And assessment objective 4, that 4 marks, is to be able to use a good standard of written English to express ideas. Now you are only assessed on that objective in the Romeo and Juliet section of this paper. In terms of levels and mark boundaries, So for level 1, okay, which will give you 1 to 5 marks, they are looking for simple, explicit comments. For level 2, where you're looking at 6 to 10 marks, you're looking at supported, relevant comments. For level 3, 11 to 15 marks, you're looking for explained, structured comments. Level 4, 16 to 20 marks, clear understanding. Level 5, 21 to 25 marks, thoughtful, developed consideration of all those assessment objectives. And level 6, 26 to 30 marks, convincing, critical analysis and exploration. Now those are the direct words pulled from the examiner's mark scheme. So let's break that down and think about what all of that means. So for those top marks, okay, level 6, 26 to 30 marks, you need to be asking yourself if you've done the following things. Okay, you have written a strong and convincing argument in response to the question. It is clear and intellectually engaging to read and always stays on topic. You can genuinely see things from the writer's point of view and are able to write about the text's more difficult aspects with confidence and accuracy. You explore the text's underlying themes and ideas with ease, confidently linking aspects of the text to the writer's intentions. Where appropriate, you are able to make multiple interpretations. At the higher end, you may have even evaluated different interpretations of specific moments. You have written in paragraphs and expressed a good range of relevant ideas. Your points are supported by precise and highly appropriate quotations, which are confidently embedded into your argument. Your textual references are precise and confidently expressed. At the higher end, your analysis is standout impressive. At this level, you have written an argument that is convincing and driven by your considered opinion. Your analysis of the effects of writers' methods and your confident use of subject-specific words supports and strengthens this argument, making it more precise. At the higher end, you demonstrate a confident ability to successfully analyse complex methods, such as characterisation, narrative perspective, and/or motifs. Okay, so that's the sort of things you need to be doing to aim for those very, very top marks. If you're aiming for level 5, 21 to 25 marks, you need to be doing the following things. You have written a developed argument that is clear to read and follow. It also stays on topic. It is clear to the examiner that you have thought about the text in terms of the writer's motivation. You are able to write about the text's underlying themes and ideas with increasing confidence, and are clearly able to link aspects of the text to the writer's intentions. Where appropriate, you have looked at things from different angles, making more than one interpretation of a particular moment. You have written in paragraphs and expressed a good range of relevant ideas. For each point, you have selected and embedded relevant quotations or referred to relevant parts of the text. At the higher end of this band, your answer shows an increasing tendency towards analysis rather than explanation. You clearly understand that what you have read is the result of a series of choices made by a writer. Your response demonstrates that you are consistently focused on what the writer is doing and why, and you are able to use a range of subject-specific words with consistent accuracy. You explore the effects of different language methods and straightforward structural methods, often using phrases such as the writer has used something to do something. Okay, so use that as your checklist if you're aiming for those 21 to 25 marks or level 5. If you're aiming for around 16 to 20 marks at level 4, okay, you want to make sure you're doing these things. Your response shows that you have a clear understanding of the text and the task. What you have written is clear to read and follow. It also stays on topic. You are starting to think about the text on a deeper level. It is also likely that you have written about underlying themes and ideas with a little confidence. You are not just saying the writer uses because we have told you to, but because you are starting to see things from the writer's point of view. You have written in paragraphs and expressed a good range of relevant ideas. For each point, you have selected a relevant quotation or you have referred to relevant parts of the text. You often embed your quotations in a way that allows your sentence to flow nicely. You have explained your ideas clearly and in increasing detail. You clearly understand that what you have read is the result of a series of choices made by a writer. Your response shows that you are increasingly focused on what the writer is doing and why, and you are able to use a range of subject-specific words with overall accuracy. You are able to clearly explain the effect of different language techniques that a writer has used, sometimes using phrases like, the writer has used something to do something. Your explanations show that you understand why a writer has made a certain choice and are not simply repeating the words in the question. At the higher end of this band, you may be beginning to comment on a writer's choice of structural methods. Okay, so this is that level 4, 16 to 20 marks. If you're aiming for 11 to 15 marks, you're going to hit level 3 and you'll be doing these things. You have made 2 or more relevant points and deal with each one in a separate paragraph. Your answer shows that you mostly understand the whole text. However, your teacher may have marked areas that show that you need to revise something a bit more. Your paragraphs are likely to follow a step-by-step structure, such as what, how, why, showing that you are developing your essay writing skills. For each point, you have used a relevant quotation or have referred to a relevant part of the text. You are beginning to embed your quotations into your sentences, although this may sound a little forced in places. You have started to explain your ideas in more detail, although sometimes there may be more to say. At the higher end, you have shown that you are aware that writers have a purpose. At the lower end of this band, you may still be thinking mainly about what the text is about. You can see and correctly identify 2 or more language techniques that a writer has used. You are able to identify that a technique has been used to show something about a character or another part of the text. At the higher end of this band, you give a basic explanation of the effect of the techniques used. Okay, so if you're aiming for that 11 to 15 marks, that halfway point, you're going to hit a level 3. Now, no one really should be aiming for anything less than a level 3. You really need to try and hit those half marks. But it's interesting to see what a level 2 or 6 to 10 marks is asking. So you have made some points, but may have written about things that you know, which may not truly answer the question. You have used some quotations that you remember reading or hearing, or have referred to 1 or 2 moments from the text. At the higher end of this band, you have made some simple comments about your quotations. You can see where the writer has used interesting words or phrases in a text. At the higher end of this band, you are beginning to comment on why a writer has used these techniques. And then level 1, just for your reference, okay, for 1 to 5 marks, you have written 1 or 2 simple comments. You are likely to have mainly written about what a text is about. At the higher end of this band, you have written about 1 or 2 moments from the text. You show awareness that a text is something that has been created by a writer. You may have even mentioned keywords such as play, character, or novel. So now you've got some idea as to what's asked of you to get those 30 marks. Now we're all at least aiming for those half marks, at least aiming to reach the top of that level 3. Most of us will get to that level 3 and look at level 4 and 5, and some of us will be looking right at that top band. But it isn't limiting, okay? The most important thing is to aim for as many marks as possible. Okay, aim for as many marks as you possibly can out of that 30. Okay, you've all got the same amount of marks available. Everyone has got 30 marks available. So you're just aiming for as many marks as possible. Okay, let's go back to the question then. Read this extract from Act 2, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet, and then answer the question that follows. At this point in the play, Mercutio and Benvolio are discussing Romeo and his relationship with Rosaline. Starting with the extract, explore how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love. Write about how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the extract, and how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the play as a whole. Your task for this lesson is just to plan the response to this question. Okay, and by plan I mean you need to set out or note down what you are going to write in each paragraph. What is your response going to look like? If you're happy with that, if you know how to do that, you're happy to go on and do that, you can pause now and do that task. If you need further support, so if you're not sure what to do, not sure how to plan, not sure what the extract is saying, you can watch the video on the next slide. Okay, so this is exactly what the exam question would look like in the exam, how it's laid out. So you can see at the top, it's got the name of the play so that you know you're answering the right question. And then it will say something like this. Read this extract from Act 2, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet, and then answer the question that follows. At this point in the play, Mercutio and Benvolio are discussing Romeo and his relationship with Rosaline. So what you'll notice is that even before you read the extract, you've got some idea of where it's from in the play, okay? You're told where in the play the extract that you're given is from. So you can start to piece it together in terms of the plot of the play and where it fits in. You're also told what is happening in the extract. So even if you can't remember the extract itself, or you're not sure what all of the words mean, you have got some sort of context. You can sort of piece together what is happening because you're told what the extract is about. Okay, let's read the extract. So enter Benvolio and Mercutio. So it's going to be featuring these two characters. Mercutio starts by saying, "Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight?" Benvolio responds, "Not to his father's, I spoke with his man." Mercutio, "Why, that same pale, hard-hearted wench, that Rosaline, torments him so that he will sure run mad." Benvolio, "Tybalt, the kinsman to old Capulet, hath sent a letter to his father's house." Mercutio, "A challenge on my life." Benvolio, "Romeo will answer it." Mercutio, "Any man that can write may answer a letter." Benvolio, "Nay, he will answer the letter's master, how he dares being dared." Mercutio, "Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with a blind bow boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt?" Benvolio, "Why, what is Tybalt?" Mercutio, "More than Prince of Cats." So once you've read the extract, you want to try and figure out what's going on. You might just want to make yourself a few bullet points down the side there. So the first thing is that Mercutio is asking, where is Romeo? Okay, they're wondering where he is. Benvolio says, not at his father's. And Mercutio says that it's because he's upset about Rosaline, okay, that he can't be found. Okay, Romeo is upset about Rosaline. She's tormenting him. Then Benvolio mentions a letter that Tybalt from the Capulet house has sent the Montagues. And Mercutio thinks that will be a challenge, okay, some sort of invitation to fight or challenging the family some way. And Benvolio says that Romeo will answer the letter. Mercutio says any man that can write may answer a letter. But Benvolio says no, he will answer the letter's master. Okay, so Romeo will answer Tybalt. Okay, he will challenge or rise to the challenge of Tybalt. Oh, don't want that. He will challenge Tybalt. And then Mercutio says that Romeo is metaphorically already dead, because of his feelings for Rosaline. Okay, this love for Rosaline has left him already dead. And therefore, he's too weak to face Tybalt. To which Benvolio responds, well, why? What is Tybalt? And Mercutio begins this longer speech that we've just got the first line of there, that more than Prince of Cats. So Romeo is too weak to face Tybalt, and Tybalt is too much for Romeo because of how Romeo feels about Rosaline and what that's done to him. Okay, so now we've got some sense of kind of what's going on in the extract. Let's think about the question. So based on this extract, the question could be about Mercutio, it could be about Romeo, it could be about masculinity, it could be about violence or fighting. But the question says this: starting with the extract, explore how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love. Write about how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in this extract and how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the play as a whole. And that's worth 30 marks, and you get 4 marks for spelling and grammar. Okay, so the first thing to notice is that it says starting with the extract. So that tells you that you must absolutely write about the extract. Okay. Okay, that should be the first sort of part of your essay response, your full response, the extract. It also uses this word here, okay? This is that really important word, how. Okay, and by that it means the methods, the devices, and the language that Shakespeare is using. How? What methods is he using? What devices is he using? What language is he using? And the focus of the question is attitudes to love. So what methods, devices, and language is Shakespeare using to present attitudes to love? Okay, so attitudes to love is the focus of your response. Okay, and as I said, you must talk about attitudes to love in the extract, but you also need to think about how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the play as a whole. So as you're thinking about the extract, you also need to think about links to other moments in the play. Okay, how love is presented elsewhere. Okay, so as I said, that important word is how. So we need to think about the devices and the language used to present love in the extract first of all. So if we're thinking about attitudes to love in this extract, we're really thinking about Mercutio, because he is the one that talks about Rosaline and how Romeo feels about Rosaline. So let's think about what he says first of all about Rosaline. He describes her as a pale, hard-hearted wench. So let's think about that adjective, hard-hearted. Okay, well that implies that she's cruel or cold or unfeeling. But he also uses that noun wench. Now that means woman, but archaically it also means prostitute. So already Mercutio is being really quite negative about the love between Rosaline and Romeo. Okay, Rosaline is this cruel, cold, unfeeling, dishonourable woman. And he also says that she is tormenting him. Okay, that verb, torment, is linked to torture or pain. So again, a negative attitude to love being presented there. Okay, this cold, cruel woman that Romeo loves, this dishonourable woman, okay, that's causing him pain and torturing him. Where Shakespeare also uses Mercutio to explore attitudes of love is in this part here, where it says, alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with a blind bow boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt? So as we said earlier, Mercutio is suggesting that Romeo is metaphorically already dead. Because of his love for Rosaline. She has stabbed with a white wench's black eye. So again, we've got a violent verb there. That repetition of calling her a wench. And suggesting that it's her gaze that has done this to him. But the fact that it's black suggests that her gaze is dark, almost supernatural. Okay, likening her to a witch, which at the time was, you know, the utmost evil. So it's almost like she's bewitched him. She's kind of put a spell on him. And then he gives this quite funny description of what Cupid has done to Romeo. The very pin, the very centre of Romeo's heart, cleft, so split. Okay, let's just make a note of that, split, so broken. With the blind bow boy's butt shaft. Okay, he's talking about Cupid's arrow. You know, and it sounds funny and it sounds cheeky because it is. We've talked about Mercutio as that kind of funny, bit rude character before. So he's suggesting that Cupid's arrow, Cupid shooting that arrow, was blind. Therefore, it's wrong. Ooh. And a mistake. So he's criticising Cupid. And you can see that alliteration there, blind bow boy's butt shaft, to emphasise the joke of it. Where I've got room here, alliteration. Okay, so if we were going to summarise the attitudes to love presented in this extract, we're really talking about Mercutio. So Shakespeare uses Mercutio to present love in this way. And he seems to be suggesting that love is dangerous because we've got that verb torture, the verb torment, which means torture or pain. And he likens Rosaline to someone cruel and cold. And we've got another violent verb there, stabbed. Okay, so we've got that sense of danger. We've also got the sense that love is a bit of a joke, or that it's wrong. Okay, the way that he describes blind Cupid's arrow. And then obviously Mercutio implies that love has made Romeo weak. Okay, he's too weak to face Tybalt. Okay, so let's make a quick note of those ideas. So, talking about the extract. Okay, Mercutio suggests love is dangerous. Love is linked to violence. Love is a joke or wrong. Love makes you weak. So looking at those ideas, I'm already starting to think about and see links to the rest of the play. So I'm just going to draw on some of those quotations that I've remembered and that I can recall that will help me explore those ideas from the rest of the play. So first of all, I'm thinking about Mercutio because he's the one that's explored, or Shakespeare's used to explore these ideas. And I know that Mercutio also says about love this. He says, you are a lover borrow Cupid's wings and soar. So I know that Mercutio talks about love and Cupid in that extract, and I know he says that to Romeo elsewhere in the play, so I might use that as a contrasting point perhaps. But I also know that in terms of love and violence, Mercutio says, if love be rough with you, be rough with love. Okay, so I could use that quotation to link back to the extract. We've also thought about this idea of love making you weak, and there have been other moments in the play where that's been also explored. For example, where Romeo, okay, and this is a quotation we've looked at a lot, says, "Oh, sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate and softened valor's steel." Okay, so I could use that as well to explore this idea of love making you weak at another moment in the play. So what we've got here is an essay. We've got a full response here that we can start planning. So let's think about how we might plan this. Okay, give myself an extra little page. So there are two ways you might plan. So you might start off your first paragraph, paragraph 1, you want to start with the extract, remember? And you might, thinking about one of the points we've decided, I might make the point that in the extract, love is linked to violence. Okay, and I might talk about those violent verbs used, the sense that love is linked to torment and torture and pain. My second paragraph might also then be about the extract, okay, because there's plenty to say about the extract. And I might draw on that idea that love makes you weak. Okay, in that sense that Romeo is metaphorically dead and that his love for Rosaline has weakened him. Once I've written about the extract, I might move on to the rest of the play. So my third paragraph again might be, so rest of the play might be about love and violence, and I might make the point that Mercutio says, sorry, love is rough with you, be rough with love. And then my fourth paragraph might be again, rest of the play. And I might again come back to this idea that love is a weakness. And use that quotation from Romeo about his love for Juliet making him effeminate and making him vulnerable. The other way you could plan it is to link these paragraphs together. So when you're talking in paragraph 1 about in the extract how love is linked to violence, in that same paragraph you also talk about the rest of the play and love and violence. And the same thing with this paragraph here, in the extract love makes you weak, and then you link it in that same paragraph to love being weakness in the rest of the play. So what you end up with is fewer paragraphs, but they're longer. It doesn't matter which way you plan it, it's whichever way works for you. What you've always got to keep in mind is, first of all, that question, the original question that you're asked, which in this case is explore how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love. But you also need to consider what is your central or main argument? Okay, what is the general point of your entire essay? Now, whether it's love is powerful, or love is destructive, or love is something to be ridiculed, or love is false. Okay, whatever your central argument is, each of your what, how, why paragraphs has to link to that and act in support of it. Okay, so at the end of it, the examiner can sit there and ask themselves, what is their main argument? And they'll know, because of the way that you've linked your ideas together, that even if you've made a few different points in your what, how, why paragraphs, everything comes back to whatever your central idea was. Okay, Year 10, this is lesson 2 for this week. And as a reminder, here's the question that we're working towards. Okay, it's the extract from Act 2, Scene 4, and you're exploring how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in this extract and the rest of the play. Now, by now, you should have a full plan to this question, okay, a full planned response. So the next step would be to start writing, but before you start writing the full response, let's remind ourselves of what we're aiming for. So here's those assessment objectives again, those things that the examiners are looking for and that you need to make sure that you're doing. But put in simple terms, essentially what you need to do is answer the question with a range of points. Now that means 2 or more, but with one central argument. Okay, one point that all of your other points feeds into. You need to start by analysing the extract and then link to other moments in the play. Use the what, how, why structure to make sure that you are supporting your points with reference or analysis of the language and the methods used by Shakespeare. Make sure you use correct vocabulary for those devices and methods, and link your ideas to the context. Think, why was Shakespeare presenting love in this way? Because of life at the time. You know, what was happening at the time that would have made him present love in this way to the audience? Before you start writing, it's worth having a look at a full modelled response. Now, this response is to a different question than you're doing, because I'm not going to make it that easy for you. But this response was marked at level 4, so it was given between 16 and 20 marks. So obviously it's a different question, it's different quotations, different points, but it will give you a sense of what sort of quality they're looking for a level 4. Throughout this extract, Shakespeare presents Capulet and Juliet's relationship as negative. However, it is not like that throughout the entire play, as there are points when Capulet treats Juliet well and clearly loves her dearly. In this extract, Capulet is furious with Juliet for refusing to marry Paris. He says, "Speak not, reply not, do not answer." The imperative verbs in this sentence convey how angry he is at her for disobeying him. Even though she has refused to do as he says, he is still commanding her, suggesting that he is in shock that she has defied him. Furthermore, the verb speak highlights how he will no longer communicate with her because he has not got his own way. As a modern audience, we are shocked to hear a father speak to his child in this way and are trying to force her to marry. However, an Elizabethan audience would have been shocked by Juliet because she would not obey her father, which was expected at the time as the man was the undisputed head of the household. This does, however, contradict what Capulet was like at the beginning of the play, as he told Paris he could not marry Juliet yet because she was a stranger in the world. This presents Capulet as a protective and thoughtful father who cares deeply for the well-being of his daughter. This would be confusing for the audience, as it seems that Capulet is presenting 2 different sides of himself, and we don't know which one is genuine. Okay, shout out to my dog there who just had a really long drink of water. At another point in the extract, Shakespeare demonstrates how little power Juliet has in the relationship. She says, "Good father, I beseech you on my knees," which clearly shows her desperation to be heard and not to be forced into a marriage she doesn't want. She may also be panicking because at this point she is already married to Romeo, and this forced marriage may mean that her secret is revealed. The action of dropping to her knees implies that she knows her place in the household and she is trying to physically show it. She knows that she has done wrong by defying her father. The adjective good before father could convey her guilt and also fear at challenging her father, and she now feels the need to compliment him to try and win him over. At this point, both a modern and Elizabethan audience would be fearful for Juliet, as her father's rage is clearly out of control and she is utterly powerless. In Elizabethan times, children from wealthier households were not always that close to their parents, and were often raised by maids, as Juliet was. That is clear in this extract and throughout the play. Juliet speaks freely to her nurse, but then becomes very formal and submissive with her father. By the end of the extract, Capulet's rage is out of control. As he says to his wife, "We have a curse in having her." This insult seems over the top, but a man like Capulet, head of a very powerful family, would never usually be challenged, so to be challenged by his daughter has pushed him over the edge. The noun curse has connotations of witchcraft and the devil, both of which would have been terrifying things to an Elizabethan audience, and would make this insult even more shocking. Furthermore, the pronoun her suggests he is so angry that he cannot even say her name, like she is no longer worthy of being named. To a modern audience, it is outrageous that a parent could speak to their child, but again, it would have been reasonable and understandable to an Elizabethan audience. At this point, it seems their relationship is completely broken down, and this is a major reason why the lovers end up dead. By the end of the play, Capulet has realised this and is regretful. He calls Juliet the sweetest flower, with the superlative showing just how much he loved her. She was the best and sweetest thing in his life. Perhaps Shakespeare wanted to demonstrate the negative consequences of not allowing children the freedom of choice over who they marry, which was very common in society at the time. Overall, Capulet and Juliet's relationship is very turbulent. Sometimes Capulet is a protective and loving father, and at others he is dominating and unfair. However, his feelings at the end of the play, I believe, demonstrate his true emotions, even though they are expressed too late. So your task for today is read through that response again and think, why was this response given a level 4? Why do you think it was given between 16 and 20 marks? You may need to look back at those grade descriptors, what we said you needed to get those marks in a previous lesson. And then think about what this student could have done to improve. So how would you take this response up into a level 5 or a level 6? What could they do to make it better? Okay, so this is what we've been building to all week and for the last 7 weeks really. So here is the question again. Read this extract from Act 2, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet and then answer the question that follows. At this point in the play, Mercutio and Benvolio are discussing Romeo and his relationship with Rosaline. Starting with the extract, explore how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love. Write about how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in this extract and how Shakespeare presents attitudes to love in the play as a whole. Give yourself 40 to 45 minutes to now write your full response. Okay, that is a full essay response to this question. Once you've done that, you can email it to your teacher. So either attach it as a Word document or send a photo of the completed work to your teacher. Well done, Year 10, you have made it to the summer holidays. This has been a weird couple of terms and we are so appreciative and proud of everything that you've accomplished over the last few months. I know it's been a bit of a slog. I know there's been times where it's been really difficult, but you've done really, really well. So for now, go and have a rest, go and take some time off, enjoy the summer as best that we can, and we will see you in September, year 11.